The sun was slowly going down over the wide land of the Wild West. The sky was painted with soft orange and red colors, and the air felt dry and quiet. A lone cowboy rode his horse across the open ground, moving carefully as if every sound mattered. His clothes were dusty from long travel, and his face showed the marks of a hard life. He was not a young man anymore, but he was still strong. Years of riding, guarding cattle, and facing danger had shaped him into someone who trusted only himself and the gun at his side. This land was known as dangerous. People said it was Apache territory, a place where a man had to stay alert or risk losing his life. The cowboy knew the stories well. He had heard them in saloons and camps, told by men who spoke with fear and anger. Some stories were true, some were not, but they all left a mark on his mind. Even now, as he rode forward, his hand stayed close to his gun, not out of pride, but out of habit. His horse slowed when it reached a small stream. The cowboy looked around before stopping. Water was rare, and places like this often attracted others. He listened carefully. The wind moved gently through the grass, and birds called from far away. Everything seemed calm, yet his chest felt tight. Experience had taught him that calm could break in a heartbeat. He dismounted and led his horse to the water. As the animal drank, the cowboy knelt and splashed water on his face. The cool touch felt good, washing away some of the dust and heat. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to breathe easily. That was when he felt a presence nearby. He froze. Slowly, he stood up and turned his head. A woman stood a short distance away, watching him. She had appeared so quietly that he did not hear her approach. She wore simple clothing and stood tall and steady, like she belonged to the land itself. Her eyes were sharp but calm, filled with a kind of strength he had rarely seen. She was Apache. The cowboy's heart began to beat faster. Every story he had ever heard rushed into his mind. Without thinking, his hand moved toward his gun. His fingers touched the handle. But something stopped him. The woman did not rush forward. She did not raise a weapon. She simply stood there, studying him as carefully as he studied her. The silence between them grew heavy. The horse shifted slightly, sensing the tension. The cowboy swallowed hard. He wanted to speak, but his mouth felt dry. He had faced dangerous men before, but this moment felt different. There was no shouting, no threat, no clear enemy, just two people standing in a quiet place, each wondering what the other would do. The woman took a small step closer. The cowboy felt his muscles tighten. His hand closed more firmly around his gun. Yet it began to shake. He did not understand why. He had drawn his weapon many times before without fear, but now, something inside him felt weak, exposed. The woman noticed. Her eyes moved from his face to his hand. She tilted her head slightly, as if thinking. Then she spoke, her voice calm and clear. "Cowboy," she said, "why does your hand shake when I reach for your gun?" Her words struck him harder than any threat. He had expected anger, maybe even violence, but not a question, not spoken so softly, without judgment. He looked down and realized it was true. His hand was shaking. Embarrassment and confusion washed over him. He wanted to hide his fear, but he could not. His body had betrayed him. He slowly loosened his grip on the gun, though he did not remove his hand completely. "I don't know," he answered honestly. His voice sounded rough, like it had not been used in days. The woman studied him for a long moment. She did not seem afraid of him or his weapon. Instead, her gaze held curiosity, as if she was looking past the gun and into the man himself. "This land teaches fear," she said. "It teaches people to expect harm." The cowboy nodded slightly. He did not know what else to do. Her words felt true, even if he had never thought about them that way. He had grown up learning that survival meant being faster and stronger than others. Trust was something you could not afford. They stood there, facing each other, neither moving closer nor backing away. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the ground. The world felt very small, focused only on this moment. The cowboy's mind drifted to memories he had tried to forget. Long nights on the trail, friends lost to sudden fights, faces he could not remember clearly, only the sound of gunfire and the rush of fear. He had told himself those things made him strong. But now, standing in front of this woman, he wondered if they had only made him tired. The Apache woman took another step closer, slow enough that he could stop her if he chose. She did not reach for his gun, not yet. Instead, she raised her empty hand slightly, showing she meant no harm. "You expect me to be your enemy," she said. "Because that is what you were taught." The cowboy nodded again. "That's what everyone says," he replied. "Out here, you don't take chances." She looked at the land around them, then back at him. "And yet, you are still alive, because you take some chances. You stopped here. You did not shoot when you saw me." He had no answer for that. He realized she was right. Something inside him had chosen not to act on fear alone. The wind picked up, moving her hair gently. She looked strong, but there was also a quiet sadness in her eyes. It made him wonder what she had seen in her life, what she had lost. "I won't harm you," she said, "but I will not run from you either." The cowboy felt his hand grow steadier. Slowly, he moved it away from his gun and let it rest at his side. The action felt strange, like stepping into unknown ground without protection. "I don't want trouble," he said. "Just water for my horse and myself." She nodded. "Then we want the same thing." For the first time since seeing her, he allowed himself to relax just a little. The tension did not disappear, but it softened. He realized how close he had come to making a terrible mistake, one driven by fear rather than reason. The woman glanced at the stream, then back at him. "The land remembers how people treat each other," she said quietly. "It remembers more than gunshots." Her words stayed with him. He felt like this meeting was not just a random moment, but something important, something meant to change him in ways he did not yet understand. As the sun slipped behind the hills, the cowboy stood beside the stream with an Apache woman he had been taught to fear. His gun remained untouched. His hand no longer shook as badly, but his heart felt heavy with new thoughts. This was only the beginning of a story neither of them had planned, a moment where fear met understanding, and where a single question had opened a door the cowboy never knew existed. The quiet between them did not feel empty anymore. It felt full, heavy with thoughts neither of them spoke out loud. The cowboy stood still, listening to the soft sound of water moving over stones. His horse finished drinking and lifted its head. Calm now, as if it sensed the danger had passed. The cowboy wished his own heart would slow down the same way. He studied the Apache woman more carefully. She was not holding any weapon in her hands, yet she did not look weak. Her strength came from the way she stood, balanced and aware, as if every part of her knew the land and trusted it. That confidence made him feel uneasy, because his own confidence had always come from leather, metal, and quick reactions. "You don't have to be afraid," she said, noticing the tension still in his shoulders. "Fear makes people see only one ending." He let out a slow breath. "Fear keeps people alive," he replied. "At least, that's what I've learned." She gave a small, thoughtful smile. Her words stayed with him. He had never thought of fear as something that could lie to him. For years, it had been his guide, warning him when to run, when to fight, when to stay silent. Now he wondered how many choices he had made because of fear, not truth. They both sat near the stream, leaving space between them. The sun had nearly disappeared, and the sky was turning purple and deep blue. Night would come soon, and with it, colder air. The cowboy wrapped his arms around himself and stared at the water. "I didn't expect to meet anyone out here," he said, "especially not you." "I could say the same," she answered. "But the land does not belong to one kind of person. It allows meetings when it wants." He nodded slowly. That made sense in a strange way. "Out here, The land decided everything. It gave life and took it away without asking. For a while, neither of them spoke. The cowboy's mind drifted again, this time deeper into memory. He remembered being younger, riding with other men who laughed loudly and talked about bravery. They believed strength came from never hesitating. When trouble came, they reacted fast. Sometimes too fast. He remembered one night when fear ruled him completely. A sudden noise, a shadow moving. He had acted before thinking. Afterward, the silence had been worse than the noise. He had never spoken of it to anyone. He carried it with him like a stone in his chest. The Apache woman watched him closely. She could see the weight in his eyes, the kind that came from things never spoken. "You have seen loss," she said quietly. He looked up, surprised. "Everyone out here has," he replied. "Yes," she agreed, "but not everyone carries it the same way." Her words felt true. Some men turned their loss into anger. Others turned it into silence. He had chosen silence, thinking it was safer. She shifted slightly, drawing her knees closer. "My people also know loss," she said. "We have watched our paths grow smaller. We have buried those who only wanted to live." The cowboy listened. He did not interrupt. He sensed this was not a story told often to strangers. "We are taught to be ready," she continued. "Ready to run, ready to hide, ready to defend. That kind of life shapes the heart." He thought about his own life, always ready, always alert. The shape of his heart did not feel very different. "Then why didn't you run when you saw me?" he asked. "Why didn't you hide?" She met his eyes. "Because I wanted to see who you really were," she said. "Not the stories, not the fear. The man." That answer unsettled him. No one had ever wanted to see him without the role he played. He was a cowboy, a rider, a man with a gun. That was how people saw him. That was how he saw himself. "And what do you see now?" he asked. She took her time before answering. "I see someone tired of carrying fear," she said. "Someone who is stronger than he knows." He looked away, uncomfortable. Praise felt strange, almost undeserved. "You don't know me," he said. "Not yet," she replied calmly. The night grew darker. Stars began to appear one by one. The cowboy reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small piece of food. He hesitated, then offered it to her. She accepted with a nod. Not as a favor, but as something natural. As they ate, the tension continued to ease. The sound of insects filled the air. The cowboy realized how rare this moment was. Sitting beside someone he had been taught to fear, sharing silence instead of violence. "Why did you ask about my hand?" he finally asked. "About it shaking." She looked at his hand, resting now on his knee, steady. "Because shaking hands tell the truth," she said. "They speak when words try to hide." He thought about that. He had spent his life hiding behind tough words and quick actions. Yet his body had revealed him in a single moment. "I thought fear meant weakness," he admitted. "Fear means you care about what comes next," she answered. "It becomes weakness only when it controls you." Those words stayed with him. He realized that his fear had controlled many moments of his life. It had pushed him into choices he never questioned. A distant sound echoed across the land. The cowboy stiffened, instinct pulling him toward his gun again. The woman noticed and placed her hand gently on the ground between them. "Listen," she said softly. He listened more carefully. The sound faded. Just night noises. Nothing more. He slowly relaxed. "I'm not used to trusting quiet," he said. "Quiet can be honest," she replied. "It does not pretend." They talked for a long time after that. About the land. About travel. About how the world was changing faster than people could understand. They did not share names. Names felt too close. Too heavy. For now, this was enough. As the fireflies appeared near the stream, the cowboy felt something shift inside him. He was not cured of fear. He was not suddenly brave in a new way. But he felt aware. aware that his gun was not the only thing that defined him. When they finally stood to leave, he felt a strange sense of loss, even though nothing had ended yet. "Maybe our paths will cross again," he said. "Maybe," she answered. "Or maybe this moment is meant to live only in memory." He nodded, understanding that not all important moments lasted long. Some existed only to change the direction of a life. As he mounted his horse and rode away, he looked back once. She was already blending into the night, becoming part of the land again. His hand rested near his gun out of habit, but it did not shake this time. He rode forward carrying new thoughts, knowing that fear no longer owned him the way it once had. Something had begun to change, quietly and deeply. And he sensed this meeting was only the second step of a much larger journey. The next morning came slowly, wrapped in pale light and cool air. The cowboy woke before the sun fully rose. He had slept on the ground a short distance from the stream, but his rest had been light. His dreams were filled with memories and thoughts that would not settle. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he did was look around, half expecting to see the Apache woman nearby. But she was gone. The land looked the same as it always did, quiet, wide, and still, but he felt different. Something inside him had shifted. He sat up and rubbed his face, trying to clear his mind. For years, mornings had felt the same to him. Wake up. Check surroundings. Reach for the gun. Today, he paused. His hand rested on his knee instead. He stood and stretched, listening to the sounds of the land waking up. Birds moved through the air, and the wind brushed against the grass. Nothing felt rushed. He saddled his horse slowly, giving himself time to think. As he rode, the woman's words stayed with him. About fear. About seeing the man behind the stories. He wondered how many people had only ever seen him as a threat, just as he had once seen her. The trail led him toward a small settlement by late morning. A few wooden buildings stood under the sun, worn by time and dust. This place was familiar to him. He had stopped here before to trade and rest. Normally, he would ride in with his guard up, eyes sharp, ready for trouble. This time, he noticed the people instead. A shopkeeper swept dust from his doorway. A child ran past, laughing. Two men argued quietly near a wagon, their voices more tired than angry. Life went on in small, simple ways. The cowboy tied his horse and stepped inside the general store. The smell of grain and old wood filled the air. The owner looked up and nodded, recognizing him. "You look like you didn't sleep much," the man said. The cowboy gave a small smile. "Had a lot on my mind." The owner shrugged. "That'll do it." As the cowboy gathered supplies, he noticed a group of men talking in low voices near the back. Their tone carried tension. He didn't mean to listen, but the words caught his attention. "They were spotted near the hills," one man said. "Apache. Could be trouble." Another man shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Trouble always follows." The cowboy felt his chest tighten. Just a day ago, he would have nodded along. He might have added his own story to the pile. Now, he felt uncomfortable. "They're planning a patrol," the first man continued. "Better to strike first than wait." The cowboy turned away, his supplies in hand. He did not speak, but his thoughts were loud. Strike first. Those words had guided so many actions in his life. He wondered how many times they had been wrong. Outside, he mounted his horse and rode out of town. The sun climbed higher, warming the land. The further he went, the quieter it became. Yet his mind was not quiet at all. As the day passed, he found himself riding toward the hills without fully deciding to. He told himself he was just traveling. But deep down, he knew why he was there. He wanted to understand more. Not from stories or rumors, but from truth. By afternoon, he noticed signs of movement tracks, broken grass, small changes in the land that most people would miss. He slowed his horse, careful not to make noise. His heart beat faster, not from fear alone, but from awareness. He dismounted and led his horse behind a group of rocks. He moved forward on foot, watching closely. That was when he saw her again. She stood near a group of people, men and women, gathered around a fire. Children sat nearby, listening to an elder who spoke softly. There was no sign of anger or danger, just people living, sharing time together. The cowboy stayed hidden, unsure what to do. Part of him wanted to leave quietly. Another part wanted to step forward. Before he could decide, the woman looked up. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she spoke to the others in her language. The group fell silent. Slowly, she walked toward him, stopping a few steps away. "You came back," she said. "I didn't plan to," he replied honestly. "I just rode." She studied his face. "Sometimes the land leads us where we need to be." He nodded. "People in town are afraid," he said. "They talk about striking first." She sighed softly. "Fear travels faster than truth." He looked past her at the group. "They don't look like a threat." "No," she said. "They look like families." The word hit him hard. Families. He thought of the faces he had seen earlier in town. How similar they were, despite everything. "I don't want anyone hurt," he said. "On either side." She searched his eyes, weighing his words. "Then you must decide who you are," she said. "A man who repeats old paths, or one who chooses a new one." He swallowed. This was not a choice he could make lightly. If he warned the town, he might cause fear to grow. If he stayed silent, others might act anyway. "What would you do?" he asked. She looked toward her people. "I would protect them," she said. "But I would rather protect them without blood." The cowboy thought about his gun, hanging at his side. For years, it had been his answer. Now, it felt heavy. "I can talk to them," he said slowly. "The men in town. I can try." She raised an eyebrow. "Try is not always enough." "I know," he replied. "But it's better than silence." They stood together, two people from different worlds, facing the same hard truth. Change was dangerous, but so was staying the same. Before he left, she stepped closer. "Be careful," she said. "Fear does not give up easily." He met her gaze. "Neither do I." As he rode back toward the settlement, his heart pounded. He did not know how the men would react. He did not know if words would matter. But he knew one thing: turning away now would mean betraying something important that had awakened inside him. The sun was lowering again when he reached the edge of town. Smoke rose from chimneys. People moved about, unaware of how close fear and peace stood to each other. The cowboy dismounted and walked toward the center of town. His hand brushed his gun out of habit, but he did not grip it. His strength now came from something else. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to speak not as a fighter, but as a man who had finally learned to listen. The town felt different as the cowboy walked through it. The same dusty road lay under his boots. The same wooden buildings stood on both sides. But the air felt tighter. People looked at him as he passed, some nodding and greeting, others watching with careful eyes. Word about the patrol had already spread. Fear moved quickly here. He stopped near the center of town, where a few men were gathered. They spoke in low voices, checking their gear, talking about routes and timing. These were not bad men. He knew that. Most of them were fathers, brothers, workers, trying to protect what little they had. But fear had a way of turning good intentions into dangerous plans. One of the men noticed him and called out, "You heading out with us?" The cowboy took a moment before answering. He felt every pair of eyes turn toward him. This was the moment he had been riding toward since morning. "No," he said calmly. "I came to talk." The men exchanged looks. One of them frowned. "Talk won't fix what's coming." "Maybe not," the cowboy replied. "But rushing in will only make it worse." A murmur spread through the group. Some looked unsure. Others crossed their arms, ready to argue. "They're close," another man said. "We can't wait." "I saw them," the cowboy said. "They're families, not a war group. Men, women, children. Silence fell. The men did not like hearing that. It made things complicated. You sure about that? Someone asked. I am, he answered. And if we move first, we become the reason this turns ugly. One man stepped closer, his voice sharp. You asking us to do nothing? I'm asking you to think, the cowboy said. Think about what fear is pushing you to do. That word again, fear. It hung in the air like smoke. The same man shook his head. Fear keeps us alive. Sometimes, the cowboy replied. Sometimes it just keeps the trouble going. The argument grew louder. Voices overlapped. Some men agreed with him quietly. Others felt insulted, as if he was calling them weak. The cowboy stood his ground, even when his heart beat fast. He did not raise his voice. He remembered the Apache woman's calm, her steady presence. Finally, the town leader stepped forward. He was older, his face lined by years of hard choices. Enough, he said. The voices died down. He turned to the cowboy. You've ridden these lands a long time. Why should we listen to you now? The cowboy met his gaze. Because I've lived by the gun long enough to know where it leads, he said. And because this time, there's another path. The leader studied him. And what path is that? Waiting, the cowboy said. Watching. Letting things cool instead of striking first. The leader sighed. Waiting can be dangerous. So can moving too fast, the cowboy replied. The leader looked around at the men. He saw the tension, the fear, the readiness. He also saw doubt. After a long pause, he nodded once. We wait until morning, he said. No patrol tonight. Some men protested. Others looked relieved. The decision was not perfect, but it was something. As the group slowly broke apart, the cowboy felt a weight lift from his chest. It wasn't over, but the door to peace had stayed open for another night. He left the town and rode toward the hills again as the sky darkened. He did not know if the Apache woman would still be there, but he felt he needed to return, not just to tell her what happened, but to steady himself. He reached the edge of the hills as night settled in. The land was quiet, the stars bright above him. He slowed his horse and listened. Then he saw movement ahead. A small fire glowed softly. She stood when she saw him approach. They agreed to wait, he said before she could speak. Just for now, she nodded, relief passing through her eyes. Sometimes time is enough. Sometimes, he agreed. They sat near the fire, the warmth gentle against the cool night air. He told her about the men, the anger, the doubt. She listened without interrupting. Fear does not disappear in one day, she said when he finished. It changes slowly. I know, he replied. I'm proof of that. She looked at him closely. You stood between fear and action, she said. That takes courage. He shook his head slightly. It felt harder than any fight, she smiled softly. Because fighting is familiar, choosing differently is not. They sat in silence for a while, watching the fire. The cowboy thought about how close everything had come to breaking apart, how easily one wrong move could still undo it all. What if waiting isn't enough? He asked quietly. Then we face what comes with clear eyes, she replied. Not blinded by fear. A sudden sound echoed in the distance. The cowboy stiffened, instinct rising. He listened carefully. Hooves. More than one horse. She stood slowly. Others are moving, she said. He rose as well. From town? Or elsewhere, she replied. We must be careful. They moved away from the fire, letting it die down. The cowboy felt the familiar pull toward his gun. Stronger now. His hand hovered near it. He noticed the shake return. Slight, but real. She saw it. Fear again, she said softly. Yes, he admitted. She placed her hand lightly on his arm, not to stop him, but to ground him. Remember, she said. Fear warns. It does not decide. He took a deep breath. The shaking eased. The sound grew closer, then faded. moving past them instead of toward them. A patrol, perhaps, or riders passing through. After a long moment, the night settled again. The cowboy let out a slow breath. That was close. Many moments are, she said. They returned to where the fire had been. Only embers remained. The danger had passed for now, but the lesson stayed. You could still leave, she said. Go back to your old life. He thought about it. The open road. The simple rules. Gun. Horse. Distance. It would be easier in some ways. I don't think I can, he said finally. Not after seeing what's possible. She nodded, as if she expected that answer. As the night wore on, they spoke about the future. Not plans, not promises, just possibilities. He felt something steady grow inside him, replacing the old restlessness. When the first light of morning touched the hills, they stood together, watching the land wake up again. Whatever came next would not be simple. Fear would return. Hard choices would wait, but the cowboy knew now that strength was not just about how fast you could draw a gun. Sometimes, it was about how steady you could keep your hand away from it, and that knowledge, hard-earned and fragile, was worth protecting. Morning light spread gently across the land, turning the hills gold and soft. The cowboy stood quietly, watching the day begin. Birds moved through the air, and the cool wind carried the smell of earth and grass. After the long night, the calm felt almost unreal, yet he knew calm moments like this were rare and precious. The Apache woman stood beside him, her eyes on the horizon. What happens now? He asked. Now, she said. We wait and watch. And we speak carefully when we must. He nodded. Waiting had once felt like weakness to him. Now it felt like strength that required patience. He mounted his horse and rode back toward town. Not with fear in his chest, but with purpose. When he reached the settlement, people were already awake. Doors opened, smoke rose from chimneys, and the day began as it always had. Yet something was different. The patrol had not gone out in the night. No sudden trouble had broken the silence. That mattered. The town leader met him near the center. Nothing happened, the man said, sounding surprised. No signs of trouble. That's good, the cowboy replied. Let's keep it that way. The leader studied him. You've changed, he said. I don't know how or why, but I can see it. The cowboy smiled faintly. I just learned to listen. The day passed with small tasks and quiet conversations. A few men approached him privately, asking questions. He answered honestly, without anger or blame. He spoke about families in the hills, about fear making choices too fast. Some listened, some did not. But the words were out there now, planted like seeds. By afternoon, a messenger arrived with news. The group in the hills was moving away, choosing distance instead of conflict. Relief spread through the town. Slow but real. People breathed easier. Children played again without being pulled inside. The cowboy felt a deep weight lift from his chest. Not pride. Relief. That evening, he rode back to the hills one last time. The Apache woman waited near the stream where they first met. She looked at him and knew the news before he spoke. They're moving away, he said. No trouble. She closed her eyes briefly, thankful. Then this land rests today. They sat together as the sun lowered, sharing the quiet. He felt the moment settling into memory. Solid and lasting. I'll be leaving soon, he said. She nodded. I know. I don't know where I'm going, he added. She smiled gently. That's all right. The land will teach you. He thought about his gun, still at his side. It would always be part of his life. But it no longer ruled him. Will I see you again? He asked. She looked toward the hills. Maybe, she said. But even if we don't, what we shared does not disappear. He understood. Some meetings were meant to change you, not stay with you forever. As night fell, they stood. He mounted his horse and paused. Thank you, he said. For what? She asked. For asking a question, he replied. It changed everything. She nodded, accepting the truth of that. He rode away under the stars, not as the man he had been, but as someone still becoming. The West would remember gunfights and battles. It would forget quiet choices made by shaking hands. But he would remember, and that was enough.